What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gym College Podcast. This is a Friday, November 5th, 2021. I'm joined with my co-host, Cody IG. Cody, how are you doing today, man?
Doing great, man. Happy it's Friday. TGIF, got some football to look forward to this weekend. My Wolverines playing a little exhibition match in basketball tonight, so it's a good day.
It's a great day. We got, a little bit of the overlap. We got, the tail end. We still got a lot of college games left. Don't think college football is anywhere, close to over. We still got a lot of games left, got bowl games, everything, for the postseason is still coming. It's still on its way, but we also got college basketball starting up. You said Michigan's got an exhibition game tonight. Is that going to be televised, or are we going to be able to watch that, or what?
Probably not on your basic broadcasting, basic cable channels, but if you do some work on Twitter, YouTube, you can find some people streaming it, especially if you go to the Wolverine Twitter pages there. I know Ant Wright, who gave me some love on a graphic design last night. He's going to be live streaming the game on Twitter, so you can catch it there.
Yeah, I'm going to look to do that because I want to see how Juwan Howard and the entire Michigan Wolverines basketball squad is looking going into 2021-2022 season. It's going to be very exciting. The Big Ten is going to be very hot in basketball, so make sure to focus on that. And to speak on Cody's graphics, Cody's been killing it in the graphics game, really taking on a new likeness, a new hobby. I don't know what you want to call it, but it seems like a professional type thing with the graphic design and everything he's been bringing out. So if you follow him on Twitter at Gin Analytics, it's pretty impressive stuff. I guess what piqued your interest to get involved in graphic design and making graphics and logos and things like that?
Just switched up my school program for college to actually electronic media and broadcasting. So just another tool in the utility belt, if you know what I'm saying. Gonna hit my boy Brandon Julio down in Jacksonville, Florida. Loves the city of Charlotte. That's my boy. Loves KD, the Falcons. He's a big sports fan. Loves sports. So I want to get him on here with me and John at some point. He wants to get ready for us, but we're waiting for you, Julio.
Julio, we're waiting for you. We're waiting in the lobby.
The NBA guru.
I'm sure we'll have him on here soon.
Fantasy in his life too.
Uh-oh.
Some big payouts.
Oh man. We might have to have a conversation. Talk a little bit. Okay, cool. Good deal. Well, that's great. You switch your major, you got things figured out, and it's definitely aligning with what we got going on here with the Gin College podcast and everything media-wise that we got going on over here in Gin Promotions.
Really help bring in some attention to the Twitter account and trying to get the Instagram rolling too. Been putting some time into that and just really want to get this thing to the next level, get it where it needs to be, because we're pretty good at what we do, buddy. We're pretty good at here on the microphone, so more people need to hear what we have to say.
100%. We're working on getting our content to the audiences that are hungry for it. And, we're excited to do that. And Cody, becoming a multi-tool is something that is very important in taking this to the next level. And I got to say, I'm very impressed with your work.
MSU and Spartan Twitter has been very receptive as well. I'm not a hater of any kind, but I really like that so I like to make graphics for both teams, but they've recepted my content well so far and helped me get it out there. So I appreciate that. It's helped me get a few more followers. So
perfect. Yeah. And that's what it's all about, is getting that outreach, getting that word of mouth advertising, because that's the best way to put your voice out there, have your voice be heard, and get your content in front of the eyes that need to see it. So good stuff. Cool. Let's get right into the content aspect of this podcast. First thing we're going to start with is the college football playoff rankings. So these rankings are aside, and they're different from the traditional AP polls that coincides with the numbers that you see next to your screen, or underneath, your screen next to the team that's playing. Obviously 6 and 8 was the rankings for Michigan and Michigan State last week in the Paul Bunyan game, Michigan being 6 and Michigan State being 8. That's the AP polls. These polls that you see on your screen, for those of you watching live, are created by the College Football Rankings Committee, headed by Gary Barta, the athletic director at Iowa University. And I guess let's kind of talk through this a little bit. The 4 have been selected at least midway through the season. This has been decided as far as the predictions for the top 4, the top 6, if you're counting the 2 constellation teams, Ohio State and Cincinnati. Talk to me through these teams. Talk to me through these rankings. Do you agree with them? Do you see some holes in them? And we made some of our own, which we'll get into in a little bit. But how do you feel about these college football playoff rankings?
Definitely some things that I do like, I agree with. And then some discrepancies that I think me and a couple fan bases of some of these teams are really, really shaking their heads at. They don't understand. Oklahoma, for one, they want some love. They struggled a little bit in some games, have been really ostracized all season by the media, always just on upset alert, if you will, until Caleb Williams came along. And they're the only 9-0 team, haven't had their bye week yet, and they're sitting back there at 8. Yeah, so I know the Sooner fan base, they want some attention. Wake Forest sitting right behind them, also another undefeated team with a couple teams with some losses in front of them. So I know teams like that aren't taking that too well. And Cincinnati, being behind Ohio State with the loss in the same state, I know the Bearcats aren't taking kindly to that either.
Yeah, you got a Pac-12 team in there too, Oregon at number 4 with 1 loss, 7-1, coming into the CFP rankings committee show, whatever you want to call it. And there's some uproar with this decision too. Obviously, they have a tough loss on their scoreboard, on their rankings, on whatever you want to call it. They have a tough loss, but to put them at 7-1, a Pac-12 team that is seemed to do okay, but they don't seem like they're a super high class team, especially between some really close matchups, won some nail biter games. But I don't think that they deserve to be at number 4. Do you? Do you think that they are deserving of that spot, or should they be further down?
That's the Oregon Ducks we're talking about?
Yeah, Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, I think you got to give that 4 spot to Cincinnati or Oklahoma, at least right now. The Pac-12 hasn't looked super strong, and then that loss to Stanford reminds me of Ohio State's loss to Iowa a couple years back, where it's just really inexcusable and not something that you can wipe off the resume. It's not a team that has done very much or has much credibility or standing even in the Pac-12. So that's a real head scratcher. And to be sitting there with that kind of loss at 4 is a little bit confusing to especially some of the fan bases of these teams that feel snubbed. My Wolverines, I feel like they got a little, the door is being left open for my Wolverines. Let's say that there. With all the chaos in the Big Ten East that is going to ensue, the door is definitely being left open, being in front of 2 undefeated teams and everything in front of them. So, yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think Michigan's in a good spot. I think the door is wide open for them to be in contention for those constellation team games in number 5 Ohio State, number 6 Cincinnati. If any of those teams falter, which is a big possibility, if any of the teams in the top 4 falter, that leaves the door wide open for the taking as far as Michigan and the Wolverines are concerned. They can slip right in there. Being at 7, they can slip right in because it's basically a waiting list, right? So any team that does well within, beyond the top 6 will slide their way up into the top 6 based on, how those teams in the top 6 do. If they lose games, they're going to get shoved to the wayside. And that's something that's really important to consider, especially going into the latter half of the season. You got to consider these things. You got to take every game, a little more seriously. You got to take things a little bit more, slow. You got to be careful about your matchups, your play calling, because all these things are going to be considered. They're going to be looked at under a microscope even more than they were already. So a lot of things to consider here with the college football playoff rankings being released. And
another door that they're leaving wide open is the first possibility for 2 Big Ten teams to make the playoff finally. Scenario, we both beat Ohio State and win out. You guys go to the Big Ten championship. We're sitting there at 11-1. I think it's hard, depending on the teams in front of us. I mean, the Wolverines, it's hard to see us getting left out without even going to the Big Ten championship. That's just something I've heard in the air in the last week. I don't know if it's just Wolverine hopefulness, optimism, if you will. What do you think about 2 Big Ten teams possibly getting in, even if it's Ohio State and Sparty, not per se my Wolverines?
Well, how I feel about Ohio State and the Buckeyes. I got some players that have went there and played there that I do have grown fond of. But I want to see them out of the top 6. I want to see them out of the college football rankings, the college football playoff conversation. I want to see them out. You're going to talk about CJ Stroud and, all the success that he's found this year. It's not good enough. Not good enough for me not to be in the top 6. You got Alabama at number 2. I think some strength of schedule stuff comes into there when you're considering Alabama number 2. Do they deserve to be at number 2? That's a question that needs to be answered too. The strength of schedule take the trump card over rankings and record? I don't know. So that's something that the committee has to decide. I don't have the credibility yet to decide that. We'll see what happens someday. I might have that credibility and have that position, but there's different questions. You can look at it from any different angle, especially if you have certain biases towards certain teams, and you're going to obviously think a certain way about their ranking, where they should be, if their ranking agrees with your mindset or not. So I understand the college football rankings, the committee, they have a tough assignment on their plate to be able to handle and to be able to make every team happy and to accompany every team's wishes and their needs, and to accompany even what they've done, what's on their resume. It's tough. It's a tough decision to make, no matter which ranking you give any of these teams. So there's a lot of angles you got to consider it from, but I'd love to see 2 Big Ten teams in the top 6 at least. And even in the top 4, that'd be even better. Whether it's Ohio State and Sparty or even Ohio State and Michigan. I mean, Ohio State and Michigan, that's going to be a big game this year. That's a game where Michigan has, nothing to lose, everything to gain. So that's going to be about State too, when State plays them here in a couple weeks. So it's going to be a big decision point. If Sparty can beat Ohio State and then Michigan goes into that game knowing State beat Ohio State, I mean, the door is already wide open at that point.
Yeah.
So that then they're really going to be playing for a position. So I'll be really excited if that happens. If the college football gods look down on us and they really grant us with that opportunity, then that's going to be a sight to see.
Man, we can only hope.
And exactly, we can only hope. So yeah, and we're excited. We're excited for the college football playoff. It's coming at us quicker than we think, and quicker than we might expect it to. We're already halfway through the season now. So I still remember calling the bet on the Instagram of JT Daniels and Georgia winning against Clemson. So that seems like just yesterday, and it's already flying by. But good thing we got college basketball to kind of rebound off of this. No pun intended. And it comes right after college football, the first exhilarating part of the year, going into the holiday season, something that's already exciting. And then you got college basketball coming right after college football. So it's really exciting stuff. And we can't wait for all of it to happen. But let's get into something else that we're going to be releasing graphics on. So the Gin Pros playoff rankings, the CFP rankings that will be released by the Gin Pros, the Gin Sports Network Committee. Let's just talk about that for a little bit. Cody, I'll let you talk about your top 6, and then I'll go through mine a little bit. And there'll be graphics and a lot of stuff coming out on this that Cody will be constructing, and they'll be posted everywhere on social media. So look forward to those too. But Cody, tell me about your top 6.
Yeah, my top 3 are gonna match up with the rankings committee. I got UGA at 1. Bulldogs just looking like the team to beat. Nobody's really held a candle to what they've been able to do on the field this year. I got Bama in at number 2, although that's iffy for me. That's a little bit of my bias, but I also don't know. At least until they have to go to the SEC championship and play Bulldogs, I don't see Bama slipping up again. So I don't see them moving out of that type of position. Sparties, they're right there. I think that a Bama game with them would be great. So they're really close. It's kind of a 2A, 2B situation there at 2 and 3. And then I got the Oklahoma Sooners and Caleb Williams there, number 4. I can't really write off 9-0. And you still got most of your tough games out of the way. I know you got to match up with Oklahoma State, but they got knocked off of their high horse. They're still sitting in a good position, nothing to laugh at, but I think the Sooners are going to take care of business and at least be able to get undefeated going into the Big 12 championship. And then you got the Bearcats, hurts me that I can't put the Bearcats in the top 4. I want to so bad. Desmond Ridder and Luke Fickell, what they've done, only losing to Georgia, the number 1 team in the last 2 years. So that's pretty insane what they've been able to, the line of wins they've been able to put together. And then I have the Oregon Ducks sitting at number 6. So yeah, I think I got OSU right behind that and so on and so forth. They're actually the rankings we went over on Monday. That's my top 6 from there. I'm not going to make any changes until we see some action this week, but who's your top 6?
Yeah, and you speak on this top 6, this is what it is for now. This is a tentative. This is a screenshot. It's a snapshot of what is, the playoff picture. If everything goes according to schedule, according to plan, going down the road to the rest of the season. So these could change. And good thing we'll have a paper trail of this so we can see where we were and then we can see where we are. We're going to make another 6 going into Selection Sunday. That's going to be really exciting to do. So we'll look forward to that. But yeah, I obviously have Georgia, number 1, JT Daniels, the entire offense. Georgia, they've got it done this year. They got it figured out. They had a couple shaky games, struggled putting points on the board early in the season. They're getting that figured out. I think they deserve that number 1 spot, and the CFP rankings committee got that one correct. At number 2, I got OU. I'm talking Spencer Rattler. I'm talking Caleb Williams. Yes, they had some shaky games. Yes, they had some shaky performances, but they've still got the wins on the board. They're 9-0. They still haven't had their bye week yet, so they got a lot of their tough games away and behind them, like you said. So I like that. I like that positioning of OU in my 2 spot. And they're still a big time team too. It's nothing to shake your head at. Number 3, I think they got that one right. All 3 of us are in consensus is putting the Sparties at number 3. So that goes without saying. And I don't have to get too much into that. I think the people have heard enough about my opinion of the Sparties this year. And then I got Cincy. I got Luke Fickell, Desmond Ridder at number 4. I think they deserve it with that line, with that streak of wins that they have. I'm putting the strength of schedule a little bit on the wayside, a little bit. They deserve that 4 spot. They've been grinding. They've been working. How much harder can they work to get to this position? I mean, I don't think they can work much harder. By the CFP rankings committee putting them in the top 6, I guess that's like throwing them a bone a little bit. but is that good enough? Does that satisfy their craving for a top 4 spot? I don't know. Then I got your Michigan Wolverines at number 5. I think they deserve it. That was a tough fought game against the Sparties, tough fought loss. And that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. If they can finish strong the rest of the season, I think the door gets open, especially if we beat Ohio State. If you guys beat Ohio State, that at least opens the door for the 5 spot for Michigan, if not a 4 or 3 spot. And then I got Bama at number 6, just because I'm sick of seeing them in the top 4, sick of seeing them in the top 2. It's almost like there's nothing they can do. I mean, if they can lose another game this season, that's really going to put the college football rankings committee. It's going to put the AP polls committee, everybody involved, all the analysts, all the journalists. That's going to put them in a little bit of hot water. What are they going to do? Could they dare put Alabama beyond the top 10? I mean, that they'd be put in a very tough position there. And then Nick Saban would be sitting there with his tail between his legs too, which would be a nice sight to see. So I like them at 6. Maybe they lose a game and maybe they get kicked out of that top 10 spot. 'Cause I would love to see that too. But this is what I got right now, and I'm riding it into the sunset. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I like what we're both working with here going into the first college football playoff rankings. I think we got a little bit more of the world's college football playoff rankings, not the committees.
Yeah, and that's nice too. That's important for the people to see, important for the people to understand where we're coming from individually. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these college football playoff rankings, the AP polls, those are coming from people just like us. And they're based on a lot of different perceptions of different ideals based on what we see, based on playoff. Obviously schedule strength comes into play always will when you're making rankings. But you got to take into account also the grit, where they fought to get to that position, how far they've come, even year after year. Like you say, Luke Fickell, they've only, lost X amount of games in the last 2 seasons. They only lost once to Georgia, right? Last year. Was that right?
Yeah. Yep. By 3 points
by 3 points. So that's a very narrow margin. And you're talking about Georgia. You're talking about the number 1 team in the nation that they've been in that position. They've been in that conversation for a long time. So throw them a bone. They deserve it. And how much harder they have to work to get in that position? I don't know. I mean, how's that question going to be answered? Do they have the potential to even make it to the top 4 if they win out, if they don't lose against Georgia by 3 points? These are questions that I have. And I think every team, no matter what, they should have somewhat of an opportunity to make it to that position. That's why I love the top 64. I love March Madness, because it gives you the opportunity. If you make it to the top 64, if you make it into the March Madness, you're going to have an opportunity to fight for that spot. You got to win a lot of games. You're going to have to fight against a lot of tough teams, but you have that opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely think this year is going to really push the message that it needs to be expanded a little bit, because there's just things. There's been years already like this, but some years there are more than 4 teams that deserve to compete for a national championship. And I think this is definitely going to be another one of those years, and it needs to be at least 8 or 12 with the first 4 getting a bye.
Definitely. And I'm glad the conversations have already started between the college football committee, playoff committee, and, people of that nature, even conference heads that have started the conversation of getting it to an 8-team playoff, getting it to a 12-team playoff, because then that opens the door for these teams that are in the conversation to have the opportunity to make it to that top spot, to win a championship for their school. So we'll see where that goes. Hopefully that we get some reconstruction going into the off season this year, because the conversations have taken place that have needed to take place this year going into next year. So we got our fingers crossed, and we're hoping for the best. But let's get into some games now. Let's talk about Wake Forest, North Carolina, coming up this weekend. Kenan Stadium, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. North Carolina's favored -2.5, so not quite a field goal, over under 77. Tell me what you're seeing in this game.
Yeah, I'm not too certain what the bookies are seeing here, given UNC the 2.5 point nod. Wake Forest has been absolutely on fire as of late this season, after their best start ever in school history and their highest ranking ever as well. And it's really interesting because preseason rankings, we didn't get to talk too much about those, but coming into preseason rankings, which are really just run over from the years past, and just brand name and that kind of thing, star power. But UNC was ranked number 10, and Sam Howell, the quarterback of the Tar Heels, was really a Heisman favorite. I think he was 2 or 3 on the list, and everybody was watching him, and they've stumbled along the way. And I don't think anybody will pick the Demon Deacons to be the team coming out of the ACC. I think there would have been 2 or 3 teams ahead of them, maybe 4 or 5 that people would have picked to come out of the ACC. And it's looking like theirs to lose as of right now. And it's Sam Howell. Sam Bartman is the Sam that your girlfriend tells you not to worry about, because this dude is having a great season. He has 2,475 yards to the air, 22 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So that ratio for him, as far as having a clean pass and delivering the ball where it needs to be, it's going pretty well. The only thing, the over-under is at 77, so that's one of the higher ones we've seen this year. And I think it's because, Wake Forest put up 70 themselves against Army, and both of these defenses are kind of liabilities as college football as a whole is concerned. They're both letting up almost 400 yards a game. Wake Forest at 425 and UNC at 397. So it should be a shootout in theory, but these are usually the ones that come back to bite you when you try to get the over.
I'm looking for the Demon Deacons to do well this year, man. They're already doing great. Kenneth Walker was talked to and interviewed by Kirk Herbstreit and others throughout the ESPN source of analysts with Gary Barta, the head of the College Football Playoff Committee. And he was asked how he feels about Wake Forest, his past teammates. Kenneth Walker is a transfer from Wake Forest, folks, if you guys didn't know. And he's been talked to, how does he feel about them doing so well? He's very happy. He responded, he's very happy to see them do so well. He talks to a lot of guys from that team still. So it's kind of a cool dynamic, and something that we proposed earlier that Cody and I were talking about. Just imagine if Kenneth Walker III was still with the Demon Deacons in Wake Forest. It's really harder to do much better than 8-0. But how much better, how much more points would they be putting on the board? These are questions we have to ask. And I got to give credit to the recruiter that went to Wake Forest, went to a practice, went to a training camp, and sought out Kenneth Walker III to basically reel him in.
Flip him to the Sparties. Yeah.
And you got to jerk that pole and get that hook set. And they got it set. They reeled him in, got him on the boat. So
imagine how different your guys' season would look without K9. The Heisman front runner on your team in your backfield.
Great question,
you guys. And on the flip side, who from Wake Forest wasn't feeding that man the ball? Who let him get away? On the other side, the Sparty recruiter who got him to flip. Who from Wake Forest on that coaching staff did not see what they had right in front of them?
Right, because that recruiter at Wake Forest, he's got to be pissed. He's like, oh, I did this work. I got this guy. This is the guy I got. And then I got him swept under my feet to another team, a Power 5 Big Ten team, which I think is, obviously based on performance, based on what we've seen so far, Heisman candidate, all these things, all these accolades, it's where he belongs compared to a Wake Forest. But, just to see that one get away and to see him find so much success at Michigan State it's a sight to see.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him in just a minute because he deserves to be talked about almost every show for what he's been doing. But Wake Forest, they still got to take care of business. Their fan base a little pissed off that they're sitting back there at 9, but they'll have their chance to get their respect. They got to play number 19 NC State, and they got to go into Clemson, which even though Clemson's had an off year, 5-3, it's not an easy task to go into Clemson and get a win. And they finish at Boston College, but if they take care of business, they'll have a chance to play in an ACC championship game, and they'll be where they need to be if they take care of business.
Yeah, definitely. They'll put themselves in a good position, especially going into next year. If they can make a run, if they can make it a serious contention, they can give themselves contention to make themselves a candidate for the ACC championship. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on, let's talk about the Big Ten. We love talking about the Big Ten. Let's talk about MSU and Purdue. Purdue has gave some teams, namely Iowa, some hell this year, and they've kind of turned the tide as far as Iowa and the Hawkeyes are concerned. So they have the potential to beat undefeated teams. They have the potential to beat high-ranking teams. They will surprise you. 5-3. What are we looking for in this game? It's at Purdue. What do we expect to see?
I put it here in my notes at the bottom, but I'll just address it right away. Desmond Howard, I love you, buddy. Go blue, but he put your Spartans on upset alert. And I mean, I understand the narrative of it, but if you look at both teams and what they've done, and then how Purdue was able to get that upset and what they've done since letting Wisconsin run all over them, I am very hesitant to say that they'll be able to bottle up Kenneth Walker. My Wolverines couldn't do it, so I don't have much faith in the Boilermakers being able to. And Iowa, they've put together a couple awful performances since then. And yeah, I don't think that the Sparty is going to let Connolly or David Bell have the kind of game that they had against Iowa. And I don't see anything too crazy happening here. Yeah, you got that stat up there. We can just talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Kenneth Walker III against Derrick Henry, the 2015 Derrick Henry, now Tennessee Titan, now on the IR. Let's just talk about their accolades up to this point in the season. Through 8 games, you see the numbers. You see how close these statistics are. The yardages are within 100 yards. The carries are within 5 carries. The touchdowns, the rushing touchdowns are identical. There's a lot of similarities that I see, and I see a lot of Derrick Henry in Kenneth Walker. And I think a lot of people can compare and contrast these two individuals and really find a lot of similarities more than differences between these two running backs. And he's obviously going to do damage if he keeps this up, doesn't get injured. Throughout his college career, he's a junior, so he's got another year left. And he's got a lot of potential going into the NFL, going into the next level. So I think this is just a snapshot of what we expect to see going forward. Obviously, he's got to keep the pedal to the metal. He doesn't leave a lot of room for him to wow himself, for him to impress himself and others. He's just got to keep doing what he's doing and really not let off the gas pedal. Because if he lets off the gas pedal, people are going to notice, people are going to see, and people are going to hold a candle to it, and they're gonna start putting him under fire. So that's something we got to look at too going forward, and that's going to be a very important statistic to keep going. And maybe there's a postseason statistic comparing Derrick Henry to Kenneth Walker throughout a full season or whatever they want to compare it to. Got to give props to the statistician who saw this and through 8 games found these stats and really broke it down, put pen to paper, and made the statistic to essentially make this graphic. Very impressive work, and to find these similarities, I think, is very uncanny.
Yeah. Yeah, after that game, that awesome 5-touchdown record-breaking game against my Wolverines, Kenneth Walker has become the Heisman front runner. As of today, I believe it is official, but it should have been official a couple weeks ago. And any poll I've seen too that it's been voted on, it's just he's by far and away destroying these couple quarterbacks behind him. And yeah, just you can't give him enough respect for what he's doing. But the Spartans do. They gotta focus. Mel Tucker knows. He's talked about the Boilermakers and how they're not going to overlook them and what they're capable of. But yeah, you got Purdue, Ohio State, Penn State. Who else you got? Oh, and Maryland. All above 500 teams. So you guys got to stay the course, man.
Yeah, you can. Michigan State, they got a lot to gain still have a lot to gain, but they have even more to lose. If they lose a game, they're basically sacrificing their chances in the top 4. I think they will get kicked out of the top 4 conversation if they lose. Probably knock them down to a 7 or an 8. Obviously, open the door for a team like the Wolverines or Cincinnati. So we got to look forward, and they got to stay disciplined, stay focused on the next assignment, and they got to really be they got to be surgeons at whatever position they're playing to get the job done and not let off the gas at all. And that's as a team, not as any individuals are concerned. So a lot of things to consider there, a lot of still focus at and to focus on to go forward throughout the rest of the season. Got a lot of good games, a lot of tough games, tough matchups going forward for Michigan State. So a lot of things to consider, and they got to keep the pedal to the metal. Let's move on.
You guys got it, though. I think you guys look different than any year previous. I mean, you've been close, but you haven't been in this position really before. But any year you've been close with this much in front of you. I've watched you guys lose that game to Nebraska or to Indiana when you shouldn't, and I think that what I've seen you guys play with this year, I think you've got over those games that you might have lost. Nebraska, Michigan, a little slow start in Indiana or wherever it was, but I think you guys have turned the corner. And hey, man, I have you guys run the table. I'll be happy for you.
I appreciate that, man. That's I'm sure that's somewhat hard for you to say, and I appreciate that. It shows a lot of sportsmanship, and I want to say you're an anomaly as far as Michigan fans are concerned. So Michigan fans out there, take notes from your boy Cody IG, because he knows what he's doing. He knows how to handle certain situations and be humble when he needs to be. So impressive. I'm very impressed with you, Cody, in a lot of ways. So keep it up. Let's move on. Let's talk about Auburn and Texas A&M. This is at Kyle Field in College Station, Texas. Texas A&M, they got a lot of accolades this year, 6-2. Got some big wins against some teams that will remain nameless. So I guess, Cody, give me some accolades regarding Texas A&M. And, this is going to be a good matchup, a 13-14 matchup. We're looking for, a lot of opportunities as far as betting is concerned. Tell me about this game a little bit.
Sweet little SEC treat here that we're going to get 3:30 on Saturday. Should be a dogfight. Both teams kind of have got written off 2 losses, but still a lot to play for. Auburn has only lost to Georgia, and that game that we covered in depth where they went to Happy Valley for the first time since 1931 or some insane statistic. They had a heartbreaking loss there. We covered that in depth, but since then they put together a string of dubs, and Bo Nix is looking good, leading the Tiger offense. And Gus Malzahn, they like him down there in Auburn, and they hope to beat the team that beat Alabama. That's what Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, and Zach Calzada, Isaiah Spiller of the Aggies are hoping for, or what they are boasting in milestones anyway. They beat Alabama in College Station. They're looking to get some of that magic. They've never beat Auburn in Kyle Field, so that's pretty interesting. They've only played 11 times, twice at a neutral field, but the Aggies are 0-4 against the Auburn Tigers in Kyle Field. So it'll be interesting how that plays out.
Yeah, you mentioned that loss that Auburn took against Penn State in Happy Valley at the whiteout, and that was a heartbreaking one. Lost some money in that game. I expected Bo Nix and the entire Auburn Tigers team to come out and get that win, and they should have. They had multiple opportunities to do that. So I'm expecting Auburn to come out and really be successful against these Texas A&M, the Aggies. I really want to see them do well and win, but obviously – if Texas A&M beat Alabama, they essentially can beat anybody, right? So this Texas A&M team is no one to sniff at, no one to laugh at, no one to, look the other way at. So you got to take them seriously. You can't put them to the wayside. You got to, take them seriously and handle them being disciplined. So it's going to be a great game. I'm excited about it. And there's some opportunities here for the bettors. Let's just give the line real quick. Over under 50, Texas A&M -4.5. I think that win against Alabama is really assisting that line. But I think I like Auburn +4.5 in College Station. What do you think?
Yeah, history's on their side anyway, so not a bad pick. Texas A&M, they're going to try and do their most. Zach Calzada, he's their quarterback and had a roller coaster beginning of the season, but he's put together a few good games and has the Aggie faithful rooting for him. So, yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I don't know who I pick here just because the Alabama win. I guess I'll roll with the Aggies.
All right. Good deal. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about this SEC West standings real quick. Give me your thoughts on this. Obviously, Bama in the first place spot in the SEC West. How are we feeling about this? Do we see any teams changing and shifting positions, or do we see it staying mostly the same?
Yeah, I think it's really just a competition for second over here. I don't see Alabama slipping up like I mentioned earlier. But Auburn, Mississippi State's ranked 17th in the college football playoff, but they are above 16th Ole Miss in the SEC West standing. So definitely interesting to look at. The Aggies will go to play Ole Miss next week in Oxford too. So a little bit is going to get sorted out here in the final couple weeks, but it's tight over there, especially in the middle.
Yeah, it's tight. There's not a lot of room for movement. The LSU's, the Arkansas, I think they've seen their time, and their time has passed. As far as Arkansas being 1-3 in the SEC West, LSU being 2-3. Being at the bottom of the pack right there. I think there's more room for advancement for those teams that are in the middle of the pack. You might see some shifting there.
Pretty crazy to see 5 college football playoff ranked teams in one side of a conference.
Yeah, not even just a single conference, a division in a conference.
Yeah.
So a lot to consider there, a lot to be looked at, and a lot to be impressed with, especially if your team is part of the SEC. And if you're looking and follow the SEC, obviously they're known as being a powerhouse conference, if not the most powerhouse conference in college football as we know it. So things to look at right there. I think it's an impressive statistic to take a look at. Let's move on with the AP polls against the Gin Sports Network polls. Yeah, let's talk about those. Yeah. So how are we looking? How are we feeling about these teams? I mean, are we pretty consistent with the AP polls, or are there some
definitely some discrepancies between the AP poll and the football playoff committee rankings if we want to look at that? Like
let's look at that.
Yeah, they have
talked about our own.
Houston's not, and UTSA they get a ranking, and not the 15 but the top 25. UTSA, Houston, Mississippi State is a lot higher than they are in the college football rankings than they are in the AP top 10, just because of the win over Texas A&M, I believe. There's a couple things like that where you can tell the AP is more quality of record than the playoff committee's values. Hey, this team is not going to lose. Like Alabama would never lose to, or a UTSA team is never going to beat an actual P5 team, so they don't even get to make the top 25. Those kind of things are what happen in the selection committee's rankings.
Do you think the AP polls are more accurate than the college football playoff polls, or do you think it's vice versa?
It depends on really which cup you drink from. Are you from the side that thinks that the powerhouses are the ones that really can win it every year, or do you think that UTSA and Wake Forest and these Cinderella per se type teams have a shot? It's kind of on which side of the fence you lie.
Yeah, well said. And this is the type of topic too. We can sit here and talk for hours. We can take up hard drives talking about the different angles we can look at. We've already beat it to a pulp, like a dead horse, as far as where certain teams might deserve to be, where they actually are. And the truth, the reality of it right now, this only really matters at the end of the season. Once, bowl games are decided, once, playoff positions are decided. So it's all speculation right now. So it's essentially just a projection. It's a snapshot. And just got to take everything that we see here, both AP and CFP. We got to take it all with a grain of salt. So that's what it really boils down to. And we won't talk too much more about it. We're already, flirting with taking up a hard drive right now, talking about it. So let's move on. Let's kind of wrap it up right here. Give me some of your, your closing statements. What do you want people to think about going into the weekend?
Enjoy football, but also look forward to some basketball content starting to roll out. I got one I've flirted with a little bit. I haven't actually posted it, but the Michigan State, Kansas Jayhawks matchup graphic for next Tuesday, the State Farm's Championship Classic. Michigan has their first game next Wednesday, I believe. So start looking at the preseason rankings, kind of see what matches up to where teams are ranked at the end of the season for college basketball. And get ready to watch some hoops and get ready to listen to us talk about it.
100%. Our jobs are going to get even harder going into the next week, the next few weeks, because we're not only going to have to talk about the postseason of college football, we're going to have to start talking about the preseason and the early start of the season in college basketball. So there's going to be some overlap there, a little bit of craziness going on. So we're going to have to allocate our time very wisely talking about these different sports and all within the college sports landscape, which is definitely pertaining to us and our wheelhouses. So stay tuned for that. A lot is going to be coming regarding that. So stay tuned.
Luckily, for all that. Basketball in the fall is a little. We get a few nice treats like the Champions Classic. We'll have a few tournaments around holidays, but we won't be berated with too many must-cover matchups as far as men's basketball goes. But we will provide storyline content and any big game that's going to happen, we'll be there to give you some take on it.
100%. We'll be there, and we'll be your number one source for all college sports, either basketball or football, any major league, college football, college basketball, any college sport that really piques our interests, even if it's track, even if it's, field hockey, whatever it is. If it's a pertaining issue, if it's a pertaining thing, we're going to be covering it. We're going to be talking about it. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Good deal. Good deal. Make sure to follow Cody and I on Twitter. I'm at Gin Kamish. Cody is at Gin Analytics on Twitter. All this information is in our link tree and below in the description of this podcast. Make sure to tune into that and stay posted to all of our social media for all updates regarding Gin Promotions and the Gin Sports Network. A lot of changes, a lot of updates coming at you very soon. So make sure to be in the loop, be updated. We tell you this every single week, tell you this every single show. Don't get left in the dark. You got to stay updated, stay involved, and stay in the know. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II with Cody Almasi. Have a great night.